Hi, everybody. My name is Kenna Valentine, just like the day. I'm one of the vice presidents here at Georgia Tech Tour Guides, and we are super excited to be hosting you today for our out of state panel. So, I am a third year chemical engineering major from Annapolis, Maryland. Some things I'm involved in is I'm in the marching band and the concert band and the pep band and a music service organization. So, if you have any questions about music, I might be a good person to ask. I'm also involved in a professional chemistry fraternity as well as a women's fitness group here on campus. Believe it or not, I am also a tour guide. So we're going to go around and have everybody else introduce themselves too. So maybe Ainsley could go on ahead and give her little spiel.
Hi everyone, my name is Ainsley Ronco. I am a second year mechanical engineering student with a minor in computer science. I am from Chester, New Jersey, and on campus I'm also involved in the band, in the marching band, pep band, and symphonic band, and I've done student competition teams such as rec racing or GT off-road, and I'm a tour guide as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Lily. I am a second year biomedical engineering major on the pre-health track. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, and I'm in Greek life. I'm involved in the Jewish life organizations on campus, and I also do undergraduate research.
Awesome. I did not know that I had another fellow Marylander on the call. This is pretty exciting. So, just a reminder to all of our attendees today, please use the Q&A feature on our Blue Jeans events. If anything that we're saying sparks a question, if you had a question coming in, please use that feature so that we can know what you want to hear about, because we could talk all day. It just might not be exactly what you want to hear about. So, just let us know what you want to talk about and we will pivot to that. But to start off, I have a great question. I'll have Lily go ahead and answer it first. Lily, did you feel at all like an outsider at Georgia Tech as an out of state student?
I remember when I first toured tech, I was always really looking forward to it. So once I was on campus, I felt really at home and really happy to be here. I'm also a big fan of the warmer weather that's here in comparison to Maryland. So it always made me really happy to feel like I'm in this new environment. I also was friends with quite a few out of state students, including my freshman roommate was also out of state. So that definitely helped me feel like I'm not really someone who's out of place. I also did one of the last two orientation sessions over the summer, which are specifically for people who are out of state. So I was able to meet some other people as soon as I got on campus.
Awesome. And Ainsley, kind of on the same vein, is it difficult making friends given that a lot of in state students already know people coming in their first year?
So I had no difficulty making friends here. So there's people who are from all over the place. You may think that it's a lot of Georgia residents, but there are a lot of people who are also far away from home or want to branch out from their existing friend groups or people they might know. So in those first couple of weeks and first couple of months, everyone's just super eager to talk to people. So I met people from all over the place, and I didn't feel like I had any difficulty. Even if I would meet someone who had a pre-existing friend group, then I just met more people through them, and it was like a great network expansion. So yeah.
Awesome. And something I will add that surprised me a little bit about coming here and not being from Georgia is that once I was here, I realized that Georgia Tech's high like admission, selectivity means that there will never be a situation where every single person who applies from a single high school will get in. So you may have this grand idea of these whole entire cliques from a high school moving to Georgia Tech together, but that often does not happen like simply due to acceptance rate. So even in-state students in Georgia often will know no one coming into this school. So you're not alone in that. It makes people very receptive to making new friends. All right, another great question here. I think all three of us definitely probably have some answers for this. Maybe Ainsley can start. What tips or suggestions do you have to help adjust to life on campus while being far away from home?
So when I first came to campus, I immediately kept my door open at all times to try to meet as many people as possible, and that was really useful for me. And then even on our semesters where we were virtually, I was able to create study groups with people in all my classes. So we would meet on like a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis, and I really got to know these people even when we were in the virtual setting. So when I was back home in New Jersey, I still had all these students that I could connect to, and then I finally got to meet up with them in person. So even in that virtual format, I was able to meet those people through my classes. Yeah.
All right, Lily, do you have any tips?
Yeah, I think just kind of going off of that, getting to know as many people as possible, whether it's other people who are out of state or friends from Georgia, I think it's really nice when you can just be interacting with people throughout the day. I think that's something I learned kind of like more through virtual classes, that I feel like my day is always just nicer when I'm able to actually go out and hang out with people during the day and between classes and things like that.
Yeah, one more thing I will add is if you do decide to come to Georgia Tech, you should make a plan, assuming that the world is better and travel is easier, to come home. I remember the fall break of my first year. I got to, fly a plane home, and it was just amazing. It was a really good break. I felt like I grew a lot in those first 2 months at school without going home because you have to figure everything out yourself. But it was very valuable. I kind of grew up a lot in those 2 months, but it was really great to kind of have like a date to look forward to when I could go home to something I was comfortable with. Yeah, so a great question there. Kind of just a question for Ainsley and Lily, because I'm curious if you've had the same experience as I did. When you made your first group of friends as a first year, were they all out of state or were they all in state or was it a mix? I guess Lily can start. We'll switch up the order.
So I was on campus a couple days earlier than most freshmen because I had one of the last orientation sessions where you can basically move all your stuff into your dorm for your orientation. And my freshman roommate, who was also out of state, was a summer freshman, so she took classes over the summer. So she was also there a little bit earlier. And I met some other people sort of in my residence hall that were also happened to be there because of those orientation sessions. So when I first started meeting people at Tech, they're mainly out of state because of those circumstances. But throughout the first couple weeks, I was able to meet a variety of people from in and out of state.
Awesome. Ainsley, what was your experience of that?
Yeah, so I actually went to one of the earlier facet sessions for my year. So I went to, I think, number 3, which is mid-July, which had a lot of in-state students there. But one of my first 2 friends were actually from New York, which is crazy because that was really close to home for me. And I still stay in touch with them. And then when I came back onto campus, I was in the band. So we had band camp starting before the school year. And that allowed me to meet both students from in-state and out of state. And it really became a whole mixture of it, where I would say I do know a decent amount of students from like the New Jersey, New York area, just because I naturally had stuff in common with them. But then I really got to know a lot more of Georgia residents. So it's really a mixture for me.
Yeah, interestingly, my first group of friends were all from Georgia. They just happened to be like really, really North Georgia or really, really South Georgia. So they also kind of felt far from home when they were at Tech for their first couple weeks too. So, the in-state, out-of-state divide might seem pretty harsh, but there are a lot of people in-state who are from a different environment. So, it's different for everybody. Also, Ainsley and Lily and I are just kind of chit-chatting right now, just going off of everything. So please submit those questions if you want to hear about something specific. Yeah, but let's maybe talk about some programs or opportunities that you'd recommend taking advantage of. Maybe Ainsley can talk first on that.
So just like in general here at Tech when you first come. So the first thing I would highly recommend is the organization fair that they have on campus that happens each semester. And coming in, you get to see all the different student organizations, kind of give you like a mini presentation of what they do and just their tabling. And it really allows you to go around and see the different groups that you could be a part of and see what follows your interests. And through going to that and through like talking to people at that, I was able to find groups of people that I had those commonalities with. So I highly recommend being able to go to those. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I definitely agree with that, and that you should just sort of make an effort to attend different events going on around campus. The club and organization fair is definitely a really great way to meet more people and learn more about what's going on campus. But some things that stuck out to me from the beginning of my freshman year were some of the student center programs council events. In particular, in the fall, they have the Target Night, which is where they have buses taking people from Tech to one of the Targets, and it's from like 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And they have like the whole place to ourselves, and there's music, and There's someone in the Buzz costume. I remember they were using some like water guns when I was there, so it was really fun. And then a couple weeks later, we also had our GT night at Six Flags. So I was able to go to Six Flags for like $10 with a bunch of my friends and meet some people and all that fun stuff.
Awesome. I also have very fond memories of Target night. Man, that really just brought it rushing back. But I would say, now this might seem silly, but an opportunity that you should definitely take advantage of is going to class. I know that sounds ridiculous, but a lot of people, they're like, oh, I don't need to go. Like, I kind of already AP'd out of this class. Like, I'm good at chemistry. Like, I don't really need to go. But those connections I made in my first year classes, just the person I happened to sit next to, or the person who was my lab partner, or the person that I went to studio with, they are like kind of the weirdest, deepest connections you have because they are some of the first people you met. You both came to tech, new at the same time, so you share some really interesting experiences and emotions with each other. So that's definitely something that you do not want to miss out on. You can never have enough friends, and it's always good to be able to fall back on those first year class friends. Okay, Lily, this is for you because I heard you saying how much you like the weather. What is the weather like in ATL?
It's definitely fairly hot, and it gets pretty humid. Right now, we've got like the perfect temperature of like 75 degrees and not crazy humid, but the humidity definitely occurs in the summer. We still get a little bit of a winter, definitely not like what you'd be getting in New York City. It doesn't really snow all that much, although usually the temperature will get down to like maybe around the 30s-ish in the winter. And in the spring, throughout the year, but definitely in the spring, we get a good amount of rain. So right now we've kind of had a little bit of rain going on, and sometimes when it rains, it'll be like downpouring for like a day and then be like sunny the next day. So that's definitely not something that's very uncommon to Atlanta, in my opinion.
Alrighty, awesome. So, what is something that you didn't know about Georgia that surprised you being an out-of-state student? I will go first because this absolutely shook me to my core. I like did not even realize this, but Georgia Tech is in the city of Atlanta, and the city of Atlanta, very busy, very populated, has a certain culture to it, and that was the only place I had ever experienced in Georgia. And I did not know before I came to Georgia that literally like 90% of the population of the entire state of Georgia, the entire state, lives within the perimeter of Atlanta. So almost all of Georgia is Atlanta. But you can travel literally just like an hour and a half north and get a completely different view of the state. So I really like hiking and like traveling, doing outdoorsy things. So I have loved on like certain weekends being able to drive out just like 2 hours and get a completely different, rural experience, good barbecue. So yeah, that really surprised me that Atlanta was so different and population dense compared to the rest of the state. Lily or Ainsley, did anything surprise you guys? You could kind of like raise your hand if you were surprised by anything.
I had a very similar surprise as you, where I had never been to Atlanta before visiting tech. So coming down, the only main cities that I saw were like Philly and New York. And coming down here, it's like the whole dynamic of Atlanta is crazy. I would have never expected it to be like this. I love it down here, absolutely. It is a great vibe. And I was very shocked once I started going out of Atlanta and into the rest of Georgia to see that it wasn't just the city here. There was so much here. It reminded me a lot of New Jersey, surprisingly. So yeah, going into like the woods and the lakes and the surrounding area, it's really weird to have that whole contrast.
That is awesome. And I think I remember Lily saying that her first year roommate participated in the Ignite summer program. So if you know anything about being out of state and participating in that program, love to hear about that.
Yeah, I know she really enjoyed the program. She made a lot of really great friends that I was able to meet through her, which was really nice. I think she only took around 6 credit hours. I think she took a freshman seminar class, an English class, and a calculus class. So it wasn't a crazy heavy workload. If I remember correctly, I think that they only take classes Monday through Thursday, so then they get nice 3-day weekends, and there were a lot of different events going on throughout the summer. So that was a really great experience for her. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
one
think
thing to
also
note. Oh, go for it.
One thing that I do remember her saying is that all the people in the Ignite program were condensed into two dorms. So people really got to know each other in the dorms, especially because at that point there wasn't any Greek life rush yet. So then people weren't, I guess, going to any fraternities or sororities. They were just getting to know each other in their dorms. So I think the summer freshman experience definitely helps bring kind of a community to them.
Yeah, and we just got some updates that a lot of the Ignite summer offerings are virtual. I'm fairly certain you can still like live on campus, but even if you're not going to live on campus and you want to start making those like classroom level connections, people that you work on group projects, that sort of thing, you can get started with that this summer from almost anywhere. So I guess we can raise our hands. I like doing the hand raise. Raise your hand if you've ever used MARTA to go to the airport. Okay, so we've all used MARTA to go to the airport, and the question kind of relates to, do you feel safe going alone through the MARTA to the airport? And, lucky for me, I personally have never felt unsafe riding the MARTA to the airport. I've never done it in like the dead of night or like the super early morning, but you always just, basic safety stuff, keep a good head on your shoulders, be aware of your surroundings. Don't be like, showing off $200 cash. Just, the basic safety things that you already do anyway. I've never had any problems riding MARTA to the airport. And I think it's more convenient than parking because it literally like takes you straight into the terminal. So gotta love MARTA for those things. All right. So I guess we can all go around and say what our favorite extracurricular activities are. So mine's kind of a hard choice because I do so many different kinds of band and music type things. So I'm just going to say generally the music type extracurriculars I do are my favorite because they are so different from my major. I'm a chemical engineer. It's really great to have like an artistic outlet. And the people that I've met through those music programs are some of the most accepting, funny, wonderful people I could have ever even imagined. I couldn't have created a better community in my mind. So that's definitely my favorite. Maybe if Lily wants to go.
Yeah, I think my favorite extracurricular activity that I'm involved in is Hillel, which is one of the Jewish organizations on campus. Have made a lot of friends through Hillel, and I've also coincidentally been able to find out that I'll have a friend of a friend who knows whatever person that I'm meeting. So I feel like there's always some way that I'm able to sort of like connect to the people that I meet there.
So I would also say the music groups, but I'll go in a different route. So I'm also have been involved in the student competition teams on campus. So we have a bunch of different teams that are housed in the Student Competition Center, which is like a 5-minute walk off of campus. And I've been a part of Rec Racing and GT Off-Road. And in both of those organizations, I met a ton of awesome people within my major, within similar majors that have the same kind of interests as me and all different ages, which is really nice because then I can talk to them about my classes I'll have in the upcoming semesters. They can give me tips and tricks for the ones I'm currently taking. And on top of that, being in those groups, they taught me some of the skills that I would need in the future. So for instance, in GT Off-Road, they taught me design and fabrication and mechatronics before I had to take classes in which I was using those skills. So it really like gave me that leg up and be able to learn that stuff hands-on and then apply it within the classroom, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that is awesome. I think probably all three of us would strongly agree that in-state or out-of-state extracurricular involvements where you can kind of make a community for yourself are your biggest support system, and it is the number one thing you should do if you do come here, because we always need to be given support sometimes, and we can always give others support sometimes. So just getting in an environment where you can do that will help your out-of-state to in-state transition go very well. Are there lots of recreational facilities / areas to exercise? I'll go ahead and answer that because I'm in a women's fitness group, so we have used these extensively. We have our campus recreation center, which is essentially our gym, which gym is a little bit of an understatement for how incredible that facility is. It was actually built for the 1996 Atlanta Olympics. Olympians swam in the pool, used all the equipment, and once the pool was done, it was an outdoor pool for the Olympics, they just built the entire gym building around the pool. So we have the Olympic pool, so you can imagine it's pretty nice, pretty state of the art. We have what was formerly, up until like 2 years ago, the longest stretch of turf fields in the world. for intramural sports, running around the track, whatever you want to do outside. And also, since most of those facilities are on the western side of campus, if you live on the east side of campus, you might be like, well, I'm really far away from all those recreational facilities. They actually have like a mini gym near the freshman housing on East. So if you want to like just ride the elliptical for a few minutes or do some, quick weights, there is a little gym on East campus as well. In addition, there's tons of like basketball courts and volleyball courts just kind of scattered around campus here and there on top of a parking deck, in a little park. So you can find somewhere to recreate almost anywhere on this campus. All right. Is it possible to have a car on campus? Do any of y'all have a car on campus? You can just like nod. Okay, I do. I feel like I'm talking a lot, but I'll answer this one too. So yes, it is possible to have a car on campus, even as a first year. I would say that the biggest challenge to having parking is that you are paying a city price for parking. We are in the city of Atlanta, so if you're used to any urban parking situations, you can understand that it's a little bit pricey. It ends up being about $900 a year, but that is the only limitation. If you can pay it, if you want to pay it, you can have a car on campus no matter what your credit hour affiliation is, no matter what. I wouldn't say it's like challenging other than that. I do not parallel park. It's something that I stand by very firmly. I will not do it. And I have never had to parallel park on campus. So that's good at least. All right. And then there's a few questions about Greek life. How big is it and when is Rush? Lily, are you in Greek life or any of us?
I am, so I can take that. The primary recruitment takes place in the beginning of the fall semester. It usually starts the week before classes start and ends kind of right around the beginning of class. And then usually there is a smaller recruitment that happens at the beginning of the spring semester. And then for how big is Greek life, it's around 25% of the students are involved in Greek life. But I don't personally think that that Greek life has to necessarily affect you if you're not involved in it. So I personally really like the fact that the sort of like size of Greek life on campus, because I feel like you can get to know people within Greek life, and I think it's a good community that's here, but it's not like everyone is involved in it. It's not like you have to be involved in it. So if it's something you might want to try out, then it's there if you want it.
Awesome. Yeah, one of my favorite things about the Georgia Tech Greek life kind of situation is that at a lot of schools, people who are Greek only talk to Greek people, and people who are not Greek only talk to not Greek people, and they kind of make friend groups based off of that. But here, I personally am not in a social Greek organization, but I have plenty of friends who are, and I can like visit them, go to their philanthropy events, and they can like come watch our band practices on Fridays. So it's just kind of like a nice little trade-off. We can enjoy each other's worlds, but not necessarily have to be in them. Another good question, this reminds me of Target night. What are some must-have items for an out-of-state freshman? Maybe Ainsley can go first.
That's tough because there's a lot of things. I also am someone who overpacks quite a lot. So when I came down, my mom had to drive our big car down full of all the stuff that I brought. For must-have items, I'd say my go-to was an umbrella because I forgot to get an umbrella on my way here, and it definitely rains a lot down here. So be prepared for that. Additionally, in my freshman dorm, it got really, really hot in the beginning of the semester because you come down in August, which is one of the hottest months here in Atlanta. And I need to get a fan to make sure that my room has nice circulation and everything. So I would say that is a very important one to have if you're coming down in the fall semester there.
Going off of that, I'd say probably a pair of rain boots or some type of pair of shoes that are good for if you need to maybe walk through some puddles occasionally.
Y'all stole both of my answers, but it means that they really are good items. I was going to say rain shoes, and Ainsley and Lily kind of hit that with like the umbrella thing. A lot of people here use Chacos as rain shoes because it really never gets that cold, and they're just like, oh yeah, these sandals will work. So I mean, if you want to wear sandals as rain shoes, you go for it. And then I also did have a fan in my first year dorm because it was pretty hot. But I don't want to like cheat this question and not give a real answer. Another object that I really appreciated was a towel wrap with like Velcro at the top because we have our like communal bathrooms on the hall. So you will be walking through the hallways and it's just a lot to like hold your shower caddy and like your clothes that you brought there and all this, all this dramatic stuff that you're like hauling to and from the bathroom. But if you have a towel that like Velcros up, you don't need to hold it. So that was definitely a good investment here. All right, this
I
question is a great question. Oh wait, sorry, Lily, keep going.
I was gonna say, maybe like you mentioned shower caddies, but I'd say those are definitely a good thing to have. I know in my dorm we had these like wire racks where everyone would just like leave their caddy there. So I would say that's a good thing to have, and then maybe just some like basic organization items.
Yeah, inevitably you will forget something too. You can like make this grand list and you will forget something, but that's what Target night is for. And we have like shuttles that go to that shopping center all the time. So you will figure out what you need if you have forgotten anything. So don't worry too much. But yeah, continuing on to this question, this is one that we get a lot as tour guides, but we're pretty good at answering it. So they've heard that Georgia Tech fosters a somewhat stressful environment. How did all of us manage that, especially since we were coming into an unfamiliar environment? Slash, how did you balance class and activities? Maybe if Ainsley wants to start, we're going in a circle.
Yeah, I'll start off with something I mentioned earlier, but getting those groups within every class that you're in is super critical. So most of the time, people will post like a GroupMe link or send it out to the class that you can join a big one. And then I would go ahead with like the people that I knew in the class, the people I sat around and met throughout that semester to create like a smaller study group and just get together with them on a regular basis so that it would keep me on track for that class and had other people to kind of keep me accountable the whole time. And it's really nice here at Tech that we all want each other to succeed. It's not like it's a competitive environment. So we're here to help each other. And it's super nice to have that kind of smaller group in every single class to check in with and have that accountability there. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it might feel stressful at times, but I think it's just like nice to remember that everyone is kind of going through this with you, and there are so many people that have graduated from tech and like been successful in their careers that if you're admitted to tech, they know that you're able to do it as well. But I think some things that really helped me was again like the study groups. I think it's really useful to have someone you know or make a friend in your classes, but also a lot of classes usually make group me's so people can ask questions about homework or things like that. So I'd say I'm definitely someone who asks lots of questions and those types of things. So I'd say that those are also a good option if you're ever confused about something. There's usually someone who's able to give a good explanation, or going to your teachers and TAs as well is something that I've been utilizing more and has definitely helped me.
Yeah, all great answers. The first thing I would say about this question is if I look at my Georgia Tech experience as like one big lump, the net experience is just positive and great. Like the net experience does not include any thoughts of like stressfulness to me. That doesn't mean that there aren't like days or like, a week maybe where I have a lot of tests, a lot of homeworks happen to be due, and I'm very stressed. But what was kind of the game changer for me, and I think a lot of people coming to the school need to hear this, is because people who come here are high achievers in high school and they can do it all themselves and they're super smart, and it's true, they are. But once you realize that you have a ton of resources here and you can ask for help, you can go to professors' office hours and you can ask people in your class for help, it is an absolute game changer. So once I realized I did not have to do all this work completely by myself all the time with no help, the workload and the stress level goes down a lot. So it's definitely manageable if you use your resources wisely, do a lot of, planning. I use like a planner and a calendar pretty extensively, but there's no need to be stressed out all the time here. You have a lot of resources, and I don't think that being from out of state made that any worse. Everybody who comes here has to kind of hit that learning curve and figure out how they work at Georgia Tech. Yeah, but really good question. Let's see, Ainsley, would you want to give an overview of housing? It seems we have like just a lot of first year experience questions in general.
Yeah, so for housing, there's a couple different options. We have East and West Campus, where about two-thirds of freshmen are going to be on East Campus and a third of them are going to be in West. Personally, I lived on West my freshman year, and I still live on West now. And we have the first year experience, which is a program you can opt into where you can live in traditional dorms with like a roommate and then on a floor with a bunch of other first years. And you'll have an RA there who will facilitate different events for floor bonding. And you live in this community, you work with them on classes, socialize, everything. And yeah, I think it's a really great community to be part of. I did the first year experience when I was here, and I think it's like 90 something percent of students do the first year experience, and I highly recommend it if you come here. In addition to that, we have the living learning communities, which are even more of a subsection of that. So you can join a living learning community that has a certain focus on it. So for instance, we have like Grand Challenges, which will have its own focus, and Explore has its other focus. That you be in this community with students with similar interests and similar passions, and you can bond with them over that.
Awesome. Yeah, Lily, do you want to kind of talk about how the first year dining plan melds with the living experience?
Yeah, so with the first year experience, you are put onto the first year meal plan. You have two options. One is the weekday plan and one is the everyday plan. They're basically the same, except you don't get your meal swipes on the weekends, but you get additional money put onto your student ID, which I'll explain in a second. But you get 4 meal swipes per day, either the 5 days a week or every day. And they can be used at the dining halls. There's 2 on East Campus, and then there's the one on West Campus. The 2 on East Campus are buffet styles. You swipe in, you can take whatever you want. And then the one on West Campus is you use a swipe for a sort of combo meal at a variety of smaller restaurants. And then generally our student center also has some other options as well that you can use your meal swipes at. But our student center is currently undergoing some renovations, so I believe that'll be back once our student center is finalized, but I'm not sure that'll be all of your freshman years. And so then with in addition to the meal swipes, you get dining dollars and bus funds. Bus funds can be used at any location on campus. They're like your Georgia Tech dollars. They can be used at dining locations, but it can also be used at the bookstore. It can be used for printing. You can use it to get a textbook or a sweatshirt or something like that. And then there's dining dollars, which are tax-free dollars, which can only be used at the dining locations on campus. So that could include the dining halls, but it could also include places like food trucks or other sort of bakeries and things like that, at Starbucks, at Blue Donkey, all those places. So if you opt into the weekday plan, you get additional bus funds and dining dollars to account for the weekends.
Yeah, really good explanation of the dining plan. But a question a lot of people give me is like, do you get sick of the dining plan? And since we have 3 dining halls and they each do something a little bit different, yes, 2 of them are both buffet style, but you can really start to move around your first year. Since I lived on West, I tended to eat at the one on West Campus all the time, and then I was getting bored of it. So I finally walked over to the East Campus dining halls, and it was a totally different experience. But if you happen to get bored of all 3 dining halls at the same time, our first year housing dorms do have a communal kitchen on the floor. Just like how there's a communal bathroom on the floor, both the kitchen and the bathroom get cleaned every single day, which is super nice. And if you just want to like make brownies or like make yourself a home cooked meal, that is an option. It's just, on your floor. You don't get your own, but you have to share with like 20 people. So it's a nice thing to have every once in a while. I also see some concern in the chat about air conditioning and heating in the dorms. And no, this isn't some Northeastern, really old school with no air conditioning. All of our dorms and academic buildings, everything has air conditioning and heating. The biggest issue for me was I lived on a high floor. So when it's like 100 degrees out in Atlanta, the AC is working, but heat rises and that's working a little bit harder. So all my engineering taught me enough to know that. Okay. Has anybody here played Humans versus Zombies?
I haven't, but I want to. Do you know when it is?
I don't think they did it this year, but last year they did. I definitely vaguely know some people who have, and it's pretty intense. One of my friends that I actually made in a class my first year, she was in my chemistry class, and I thought it was really weird because all of a sudden she was showing up super early to class. Like she was the only one in the classroom. And I was like, that's really weird. You're here like 30 minutes early. why? And she was like, oh, I just can't be outside right now because they're going to like, shoot me with all these sock balls and, marshmallows. I was like, they're what? So for those unfamiliar, Humans versus Zombies is some game that people play at Georgia Tech for about a week. And the zombies infect the humans by hitting them with balled up socks or marshmallows or any other soft object. And the goal is to try to stay human the longest. You can only get shot outside. There's a whole bunch of different rules to it, but it kind of, adds some spice to the middle of the semester doldrums. So I don't know a ton about it, but I know the people that do it have a lot of fun and clearly get very into it because they're willing to go to chemistry like 30 minutes early. Does anyone have anything else to add on that? I feel like that's all I can say.
I will say that I had a lot of friends participate in it our first year, and it's very entertaining to know that they're defending themselves with like marshmallows and socks, because that's like the projectiles that you go against the zombies with. So it's like a whole week-long game where everyone is back into their youth. It's so fun just to see everyone so excited to play tag.
It is pretty fun. So are there any study habits that y'all have just developed while you're at Tech? And were there any campus resources you'd like to speak to that helped you with that transition? Maybe Lily can go first.
Yeah, one thing that I didn't realize would be really useful to me is that, especially in classes like physics and chemistry, a lot of the teachers will make their slides for the unit and then they'll post it online. And as they go through the lecture, they'll usually write on the slides. So I was trying to always like write what was on the slides and everything they were writing, which I realized was I just didn't have the time in the class to do that. So if your teacher has slides like that, I would definitely recommend printing them out. So then you can have an idea of what you're going to learn before class actually starts. And then a couple other things is using the Center for Academic Support. In particular, what I've used is the help desk and the plus sessions, which is a peer-led undergraduate study session. Basically, someone who's already taken the class will lead 1 or 2 study sessions a week, and they'll just go through some practice problems. It's usually pretty collaboration-based, so take your friends with you and work through some practice problems, and it's a great way to review the material you're learning. And then the help desk, so for the classes like physics, chemistry, organic chemistry, computer science, and math, a lot of times the TAs will basically have office hours in a particular room. And so from like 11 to 6 every day, there'll be at least one TA there. And so when I was taking my first chemistry class, I would be there like every single Thursday, 1:30 to 3:30 with my favorite TA who was so helpful for my chemistry reports. So I went there quite frequently to ask questions and things like that. So that's been really helpful for me.
Yeah, I was also definitely a frequent user of the help desk. For me, it was for my computer science class, 1371. I was there all the time, getting help from the TAs. But another kind of academic advice thing, I touched on it before, but I'm going to say it again. The best academic resource you have is right here, and it's knowing that you can ask for help. Lily mentioned a bunch of really awesome like tutoring programs and undergraduate study sessions and stuff that we have, but in order for you to benefit from those, you have to use them. And the very common demographic that comes to Georgia Tech are very high achievers who often have never had to ask for help before. So number one study strategy is to be able to ask for help. And it definitely took me a while to get there, but it was great once I did. Also, for about a year and a half, I was a tutor with the Tutoring and Academic Support Center that Lily was talking about. I tutored a lot of math classes, and what I didn't know about it until I was a tutor. And once I was a tutor, I was like, this is a great resource. It is completely free. You can just make free appointments for tutoring in any subject that it's available for online. The only time that you pay is if you don't show up, which you probably will, and you can just go over practice problems with the tutor. The tutor can kind of build up your confidence before a test. You can work on lab reports together. So just having the ability to get one-on-one help for free is just incredible. Ainsley, do you have any study tips that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, I have something a little different, but speaking of like the Center for Academic Success, they have a nice little display out near their window that has a bunch of different flyers that you can take. So for instance, I have a couple here because I use them a lot, but they'll give you like an entire semester at a glance that you can fill in this calendar with like all your important due dates. And then they give you like these weekly schedules that you can fill out with whatever you need. So I highly recommend just using the resources they have there, and on your own you can plan out your time, because I've gotten really into the time management since coming to college. Since in high school I felt like my entire day was already planned with going to school, then going to like practice, and then coming home having dinner, and then I finally work. Whereas when you come to college, it's a very different kind of schedule where it's more fluid and built around how you want it to be. So I would have a lot of breaks during the day, and allowing myself to schedule it in advance made it so that I stayed more on track with my studying and got that time in and wouldn't just kind of use it aimlessly, which was really nice. And I know Lily mentioned it a little bit, but I also got into the habit of taking notes before and after class. So before class, I would go over the slides they had, write down the important information, and then after class, I'd add in anything extra that I thought I missed, and having that extra review before and after really helps.
All right. I see another good question here. Do you have any advice for not overwhelming yourself with new clubs, campus opportunities, or exploring the city? And I'll answer this one because a lot of people hear my involvements and they're like, oh my gosh, do you sleep? Like, oh my gosh, how do you do so many things? Like, how are you okay? Like, what are your grades like? And the answer to this question is kind of a non-answer. My advice for not overwhelming yourself with new clubs is knowing yourself and your preference. I love to be busy. I would be upset if I wasn't busy all the time just because it's who I am. I like all of my little calendar spaces filled in. I like knowing people in a lot of places. So for me, it is energizing to be in a lot of involvements. It is energizing to be in a major that, demands a lot of my time because I feel like I'm getting a lot done. I get to see a lot of people. So I like it. If you are the kind of person who does get exhausted by having something to go to every hour, maybe start by just adding like one club a semester, see if you like it, maybe switch clubs up if you don't like it. So add slowly if you're unsure, but if you know yourself and your personality, and I'm only happy if I'm going Mach 2 with my hair on fire, so that is how I behave by joining all the things. Okay. So this is also a question that tour guides get a lot, so maybe Lily can answer it. Will everyone have to be a part of big lectures? If I'm not a fan of big classes, is there a way to escape this and make the school smaller?
So most students are going to be in at least a couple of larger lecture classes, namely chemistry, physics, math, classes like that are generally going to be larger lectures. But I personally feel like a lot of times in lecture classes, the teacher is still able to really like make eye contact with you. I remember in my first day of freshman year, my chemistry teacher before class went to like every single row and was like, "Hi, my name's Henry. What's your name?" And I was like, I didn't know my professor would introduce himself by his first name. So they really do make an effort to get to know the students and to make themselves available. A lot of times they'll also do things like having clicker questions and some different ways where you can make class more engaging. And there's some teachers that will sort of give out like practice problems and have a student volunteer to explain their reasonings and things like that. So even if it is a larger class or a larger number of students, it still is usually fairly engaging. And then those classes are also broken up into recitations where you'll have a TA and it'll be more like 20 to 30 students. And you just go through some practice problems based on what you've learned the last week or so.
Awesome. Does anyone here participate in undergraduate research?
I do.
All right, doubleheader, Lily. The specific question is, do those opportunities exist over the summer, and would you recommend it? But you can just go into like an overview of research too.
Yeah, I know that my research professor has quite a few like graduate students, so I think that they continue research in the summer. And this past summer, I did some virtual research. It will be different when we go back in person, but I think if you're on campus in the summer and a particular lab, I would imagine is still doing their research. And if they have any open positions, then they would be more than willing to take on some students for the summer or just to continue their work in the summer. But for research, there are so many different research labs on campus. Every single Georgia Tech faculty member does research in addition to just teaching a class. So if you're ever interested in something your professor is talking about or interested in learning more about, maybe what they study in a particular subject. Like maybe they teach chemistry, but is there something in particular about chemistry that they find very interesting? Talk to your teacher about it, send them an email, walk up after class. They'd love to talk about what they do. And students, a lot of students participate in research. Some students participate as a volunteer. Some people do it for credit, which is what I've done the last couple semesters. And some people are able to even get paid for the research, which is pretty cool. I also went to this undergraduate research ambassador's office hours, where I was paired up with someone who's the same major as me and showed me all these different labs who are looking specifically for undergraduate BMEs. So I was able to see all these different labs that were looking for people with my type of skills. And what you can also do is just send emails to different professors, like maybe look on the department website, and a lot of times it'll say what type of research they do and what their particular interests are. So you could just send out an email, reach out and say, introduce yourself. And sometimes professors aren't able to respond super quick because they're very busy people, but so I would recommend reaching out to as many people as possible for your best chance of getting a position you're happy with. Also, there are more research positions than there are students at Tech, so really the opportunities are out there. You just kind of have to take one step forward and reach out to different professors. And also, when I was a freshman, I took the freshman seminar class, and there are some sort of general class options, but I did one specifically for people interested in research. So there was one project where we interviewed a professor who does research, and just to kind of learn about what they do. So that was kind of how I heard about the undergraduate research ambassadors. But yeah, so there's really a lot of opportunities available for people interested in research.
That is awesome. I see Shane's question. He's asking for a Marylander to, respond, so I guess I'll answer. But being from Maryland, how many times do I return home each year? Well, the answer this year is a little different than last year, but I'm going to talk about kind of what I did before, COVID. Usually I would go home once in the middle of the semester for like a weekend or something, and then I would always be home for like the winter break in between semesters. So for example, in the fall semester, I would usually go home for fall break, which is like a Monday, Tuesday off of school, so it's like a total of like 4 days. So I would go home for like 3 days there. It was a nice break. After finals are done in December, I would go home then, spend about a month at home, and then school starts back up again in January. I would come back, and then in the past I had gone home for like a small portion of my spring break. So I would go like once in the middle of the semester, and then stay home in the winter. And then, I was in France for my summers. So study abroad, it's very fun, kids. But yeah, Ainsley is not from Maryland, so maybe she could provide a fun other state perspective for how often she goes home.
Yeah, so I'm from New Jersey, so it's a bit longer of a drive, about 15 hours or like a 3-hour flight. And I had a similar schedule where I would go home like once or twice during the semester. So I would go home for fall break and then for Thanksgiving break, and then come back down again and then go right back after finals. So that would be like 3 times in the fall. I personally didn't go home for spring break because I went elsewhere with some friends from Georgia Tech, so it was a little more convenient for them to go somewhere that's not up north. So yeah, I stay home in the summers though and in the winter break, so that's when I mainly get to stay in New Jersey.
All right. Well, really good questions, you guys. I really enjoyed it once they were rolling in. But something that all tour guides do at the school at the end of our tours is we explain why we went to Georgia Tech, because I'm assuming if you're on this call, you've got some pretty tough decisions coming up, a lot to think about. And the more that you can hear about why others chose their school, it'll hopefully help you choose yours. So I'll go ahead and go first. So as I said, I'm from Maryland, as are all of you out of state. So there are definitely other options that are probably closer to you that maybe are more well known in your area. But I toured a lot of schools that were good at science and math because I had always been told, yeah, you're good at science and math. You should do science and math things. And that was about my only criteria. So I have been to some very high-powered technical institutions, And I noticed that when I was on tours there, walking around the campus, people were very, very driven into themselves, which is great because I have a lot of respect for being driven and academically successful, and I consider myself to be that way at Georgia Tech. But the difference between Georgia Tech driven and other places that I went driven was that when I smiled at a Georgia Tech student, they smiled back when I was on campus. They didn't know me. I was clearly just like a student walking around with their parents, but they felt compelled to smile back. And I've really felt that that blend between a high power academic institution, good at all of the fields, not just science and math, combined with the fact that we have a really great community, was what drew me to Georgia Tech. So I kind of get the best of both worlds, a really nice social life with really accepting, friendly people, as well as, the rigor that I had wanted in a school. That's why I chose Georgia Tech. I always say to everyone on my tours, I hope you find somewhere that makes you as happy as Georgia Tech makes me. So hopefully, wherever you end up, it'll be a great place. Maybe if Ainsley wants to go next for her Y Tech.
Sure, yeah. So I had a similar thing where when I was searching for colleges, I knew I wanted to go into STEM. I didn't know exactly what, but I knew I was driven towards STEM. And so the two main things that were my criteria was continuing into the STEM field, mainly engineering, and keeping up with band, because I was really involved in music in high school, and I wanted to be able to continue that when I got to Tech. And being able to see that here at Tech we have such a strong music program while also having really strong academics really appealed to me because I didn't have to sacrifice either of my interests, and I can still move forward with them and not have them kind of interfere or battle against each other. And then when I finally got a chance to actually come down to Tech, because I had never gotten a chance to tour it before I had applied, I was walking around campus and I went towards the mechanical engineering building because I was interested in the invention studio that we have here, which is a student maker space where there's like 3D printers, laser cutters. It's really cool. And this guy came out carrying a robot that he had built, and I had to question about it. My curiosity got the best of me. And when I asked him about it, he said that he made it for one of the classes he's currently taking, which is ME 2110, where you build a robot for a competition and you compete at the end of the semester against all the other mechanical engineering students in your year. And it sounded super interesting. Like I saw myself taking that class and I really wanted to be in that class and be in his shoes. And I am actually in that class right now. And it kind of confirms that I made the right choice because now I'm in it and I'm absolutely loving it. It's probably the best class I've ever taken. And it was really nice to be able to see someone doing something that I saw myself doing in the future and then being able to feel that. So yeah.
So, even though I'm from Maryland, my older brother actually goes to Tech. He's graduating this semester, which is really exciting. But I'd known for a long time that I was really interested in medicine and engineering and kind of putting that all together. And so when my brother was looking at colleges, I was like a freshman in high school. But my mom and my brother toured, and I think from just kind of talking to my mom, we had some basic criteria of what I might like in a college. In particular, I like the warm weather and wanted to be near a city and things like that. I wanted to have a larger student body. So my mom toured the school with my brother and basically said that this school has everything that I am going to want in a college. So from then on, I was just really looking to go to Tech. I was so excited to finally come see the campus. And they also, Tech just has I'm at the place where I want to be for my major. For biomedical engineering, I'm at like the best place for the degree and for my career. Not to mention all the other parts about Tech that I like, the big student body, the school spirit, all that stuff. And I feel like the student body at Tech, now that I'm here, I feel like everyone is so motivated. Everyone wants to be involved in research or has different ideas of their goals for after Tech or things they want to accomplish while they're here. And I feel like it helps me stay motivated to work hard in my classes and to reach out to that person for some help or get involved in an activity that seems interesting because everyone at Tech is so passionate about what they do. So it makes me just want to work harder in my classes and everything and be as successful as everyone around me.
Awesome. I always love hearing everyone's ViTech story, so I hope everybody in the audience loved it too. That is all we have for you guys today. Thank you so much for bringing your questions and being willing to show up and learn a little bit about Georgia Tech today. So maybe we'll see you on campus pretty soon. That would be great. Thanks, y'all.